This one's a very timely question with what's been going on in the news this past week and recent months. The Western world seems to be going mad in debate over refugees from Syria and other war-torn countries trying to relocate to other countries. Here in Australia, it is sparking intense responses from people, both wanting our country to help and in others, terror that we will be letting terrorists in. There's an escalation of hatred and fear around this. I find this circumstance very upsetting because while everybody argues, people are dying and being treated like they're not even human. Can you please help me to see this situation from divine perspective and also tell me what I can do within myself on the nothing outside of self level to help this situation, being that I currently am not in a position to assist any of these people directly or physically. All right, well, I'll start with the last phrase of what you shared. Contrary to your belief, which is a false belief, you have an enormous amount of power to help all these people suffering directly and physically. Everybody on the planet does. Now, a couple of the main ways you can help, and it is very impactful and very real, so please do not make light of this or unwittingly dismiss it, which you in effect did, thinking that you, or dismiss yourself, that you have no impact and no access to them. You do. One of the things that we can always do for other people who are suffering is pray for them. Again, I advocate and ask people, requested people to use the highest form of prayer and avoid the make it go away kind of prayer, which is still nice, it's well intended, but prayer in terms of the physical suffering, sending them comfort, sending them warm embraces, compassion, mercy, send angels to just caress them and help calm and quiet their minds. And then at the soul level, pray that everybody who's suffering, and those who aren't, but that pray that everyone deeply, deeply connects at the soul level to the causal plane, the causal reasons of what they are magnetizing in their lives and why, and to be able to glean, to learn the life lessons from them as gracefully and quickly as possible so that they can grow. And then you can also be praying for the highest level of surrender within every human consciousness on the planet. Because again, where there is surrender, there is no pain, regardless of circumstance. So the pain and suffering on some level comes from levels of resistance that not necessarily is conscious, can be unconscious, karmic. So where there is greater surrender and greater obedience to the divine will, there's less suffering and war and poison and disease on the planet. So the greater there is awakened consciousness and the greater attunement to the divine, the greater surrender and obedience to God's plan, the faster this evolution, the spiritualization of the human race happens. It's a much more powerful way to pray than make it go away or kill the bad guys, which just creates more polarity and creates more war, as we've seen. One country does something to another country, that country does something back, and then someone else witnesses it and they jump in, and eye for an eye, it's, just leaves everybody blind. So you pray for this type of acceleration through awakening consciousness, through surrender to the divine, through obedience to God's plan. Those are the three. That's like the tripod of consciousness that upon which stands the true change and the fastest, most powerful change that you directly can make happen in the world. Now, help can happen on all kinds of levels, right down to where the rubber meets the road, of people sending food and sending money and going to serve as missionaries and all of that as well. And that's all beautiful and has its place. You were specifically asking whereas you don't live physically in proximity to any of that, and you don't have the physical means to engage at that level, how can I use my life? You didn't quite speak it that way, but I know that's where you're asking. What can I do to impact the situation and to help bring about change? And the other area to come from, that was from the area of prayer as a means of direct, tangible physical help, and it is. And it's the most powerful you can do in that way. Oh, the second most powerful. The single most powerful thing you can do to help directly, physically, tangibly, is to look within yourself. I'm not speaking just to the person who asked the question, but to everyone. Wars, as within, so without. Wars outside our bodies exist on the planet because there are wars going on inside of people's bodies. So let this tragedy and the suffering in the world turn your focus inward and inspire you to heal the parts of you that are at war inside, to heal the broken parts of you, to fix the patterns and distortions and false and broken belief systems so that you can function more and more, better and better as a kind and loving, giving, sharing, caring human being, and healing all your broken parts and wounds, and eradicating all your false behaviors and false ways of speaking, smallness, non-loving patterns and behaviors, etc. Make that change within, and that is the single greatest impact that you can have on the people suffering in the war-torn areas. I tell you true, more impactful than edicts coming from presidents and kings and bodies of Congress and Parliament. More impactful is you to allow the pain you feel in your heart witnessing the tragedies occurring, let that light a fire under you to change yourself and say, so help me God, I will change myself so that one less person, one less group can suffer, rather than this wanting and waiting for someone else to do it. There's too much of that going on, and that's why these things continue at the rates they do. Not enough ownership and accountability of recognizing the true meaning of the power of one. We have to go back and look at some of these great lives who've changed the world. The Martin Luther Kings, Jesus, Moses, Gandhi. Look at that apartheid film called The Power of One. It's another great example. The Reluctant Messiah films, too. There's so many messianic films of this reluctant Messiah character, especially the last 5-6 years. There have been so many of them, and you see that oftentimes they don't even see, they don't even see who they are, and then even once discovering the beginnings of who they are, they still find it so hard to believe that how's this one little insignificant human being going to impact a whole race, a whole country, a whole war, a whole side of the planet, a whole species. But it's real and it's true. And every single breathing person on this planet has the same power, innate divine power and ability to change the whole world. It's only knowing and believing that you do. And it all happens here. So build within yourself this knowingness and this belief in the power of one, and own as a life mission statement a consciousness of it's all up to me. It's all up to me. Not from guilt or obligation or obsession, but from a passion and a fire and a knowingness that you wield, as every human being does, you wield the full power of creation. Every human being wields it, that primal force of creation. And it's what we do with it or don't do with it. Do we leave it idle? Do we use it to gratify the senses? Do we use it to harm others? Or do we use it in a way that's so constructive? First and foremost, to transform the self, and secondly, to serve the world through all the loving ways and means we can. That's the highest use of our power. So that's my answer to your question. Let the pain in your heart inspire you to really, really light a fire under yourself and change yourself for the better. And then these people will not have suffered in vain.